Welcome to Okaloosa Eye on Crime, the show where Emerald Coast Crimestoppers highlights area law enforcement cases that you may be able to help solve.
Now this month we have yet another car burglar making the rounds, and we're going to showcase some cold cases that someone out there may be able to help heat up, at least we're hoping. So let's get started.
First one is a cold case, and that is out of Walton County Sheriff's Office. In September of 1995, 68-year-old Leroy Warren was found murdered in his Jackson Street home in Defuniak Springs. Now, after almost 3 decades, investigators with the Walton County Sheriff's Office are still searching for information that might help solve Warren's case. So anyone with information, of course, you can contact Emerald Coast Crimestoppers 100% anonymously, 863-TIPS, emeraldcoastcrimestoppers.com, or the P3 Tips mobile application.
Moving to Okaloosa County, the Sheriff's Office is hoping someone might recognize this individual. He burglarized a couple vehicles shortly before 3 a.m. on the morning of August 21st in a neighborhood off Racetrack Road in the Fort Walton Beach area. The suspect forced entry by punching the vehicle's keyholes. He was wearing a hoodie, shorts, and black slides with white stripes and appeared to be wearing only one sock. He arrived in a white SUV, possibly a Nissan Pathfinder, so contact Crimestoppers if you've got any information on him, if that description rings a bell.
Next up, we're going back to Walton County. They have got a homicide that remains unsolved after 2 decades. On August 16th, 2004, the remains of Manuel Mosquedo Ruiz were discovered on the edge of Magnolia Lodge Road just off of Highway 3280 in Freeport. Now, 20 years later, Walton County investigators are still trying to piece together what happened to him. He was from Mexico, had only been in the country for about a month, was working odd jobs in the construction field of both Freeport and Atlanta. Now, an autopsy did reveal he had been shot, and deputies believe Ruiz was last seen around convenience stores over in Freeport, but his whereabouts leading up to his murder have never been confirmed. This is also a cold case, too, that was featured on the national crime podcast, The Deck, so you can go learn a lot more about Ruiz's story there as well.
Yeah, that's a great program. Talking about being featured too, this is a case that's been featured for decades, and in fact locals are going to be very familiar with this next one. It's been 22 years since a teenage girl was killed by a hit-and-run driver off Highway 98 in Destin, and the mystery of who is responsible still remains unsolved. 15-year-old Shelley Metters was standing with 2 friends on the south side of Highway 98 in Destin back on August 10th, 2002, when a vehicle heading east ran up over the curb onto the sidewalk and hit her and a friend. Shelley died from those injuries, and OCSO investigators have been working this case more than 2 decades, trying to pinpoint the person responsible for the fatal hit and run. So, not giving up on this one. Anyone with information, please contact Emerald Coast Crimestoppers anonymously.
Yeah, no, that's one that a whole lot of folks are looking for justice in. So. Next up, the Walton County Sheriff's Office is still searching for a missing man. On August 8th of this year marked 9 years since John Thomas Watson, known as JT, was reported missing after he was last seen pulling out of the Walmart parking lot in Defuniak Springs around 1:45 a.m. in the morning. He was last seen driving a 1997 black Mitsubishi Mirage. Anyone with information about this case, contact Emerald Coast Crimestoppers, and of course these cases and others are available on our website for you to go view as well at emeraldcoastcrimestoppers.com. Now let's talk about some of the successes that Emerald Coast Crimestoppers has had so far this year. And year to date, 2024, we've had 827 tips, led to 37 arrests, cleared 39 cases for local law enforcement, and our board of directors has approved nearly $15,000 in rewards. Now, in those rewards includes a tip that led Walton County deputies to the location of a vehicle that had reported stolen out of Louisiana. Now, the suspect did take off, fled a brief pursuit. The 32-year-old suspect crashed the vehicle in Mossy Head, fled into the woods, was apprehended a short time later, and deputies then discovered that he had warrants for manufacturing methamphetamine. Another tip also led to the arrest of a suspect for theft, in which the victim didn't even know the theft had occurred yet. So that was a really interesting one. And finally, we had a tip that led to the recovery of a missing autistic teenager in the Mary Esther area. So lots of good things going on with Emerald Coast Crimestoppers, and a lot of that's thanks to you for calling and providing those tips.
Yeah, and we still have several months left to go in the year.
We do.
So next up, intense training is typically the norm for school resource officers, and traditionally the entire week prior to the start of school is one where they're really getting stuck in on that.
That's right, from defensive tactics and firearms training to racial, emotional, and social engineering course refreshers. Our SROs are laser focused on being the best protectors, mentors, and counselors possible.
Way to recover.
Go. Reset. Ready. Go. Trap. Reinforce. Turn. Hammer fist. Hammer fist. Hammer fist. Clear. We'll talk about some of the part of the class is interactive. That we're using the talk a second ago. So, what are some of your? We're going to talk about first the emotional intelligence. We're going to talk about yourself, recognizing things that are that's happening inside your emotions, your feelings, what's going on in your life that's maybe affecting how you react to things, how you talk to people, how you deal with situations.
And the training regimens for SROs also highlight ALICE, active shooter training. It's where they take it into the schools and they share it with all the students and the staff.
That's right. Sergeant Jason Foley says ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate, and it's designed to save lives in a critical incident.
The officers go through the ALICE instructor training. And what that does is it prepares them to be able to teach back to students, faculty, staff, at the schools, and which in turn empowers each individual to kind of make their decision on what happens or what they can do in these type of incidents. ALICE in turn stands for Alert. The alert essentially indicates, okay, I hear something, I see something, I'm becoming aware of a potential active threat in the vicinity or a critical incident happening. And becoming aware of that, then we can, being alert, we're understanding how to navigate from this particular information that you're receiving. And then the L, obviously the L is lockdown, and that's just simply where you are. If the situation dictates where you can't get out, you can't evacuate, then what you'll do is you'll just lock down in the area that you are, and you'll barricade the doors or entryways, however you are, to keep yourself safe. The I is inform. If we receive this information, we want to give out any detailed information that we can to responding officers or first responders. And that inform is whatever information you can provide as far as where the subject is or what's happening. Then the C is counter. Counter is simply if it's a situation where you're confronted with someone who is an active threat or is basically threatening or causing damage or whatever the case may be, then you have the opportunity you want to distract, you want to do things that takes their ability to focus on you, So there's different things that we teach as far as throwing books, throwing objects, distracting that subject so that they don't have the ability to be effective with whatever means that they're trying to carry out. And then the E is, of course, evacuate. If you have the opportunity, if you become alert to something and you have the ability to evacuate, then by all means, that's one of the biggest things is to get away and get to a safe area if you can. The training is significant because it empowers each individual, because a lot of times people look to others to try and figure out what they should be doing. And what this does is it gives them multiple options to make their own decision on their survival. So one individual may be in a different position from another, and their responses may not be the same, and they should be aware of those in order to make the appropriate or the best decision that they can at the time.
Now it's time for our first list of fugitives that are hiding out from law enforcement. We're hoping maybe you can help us find it. We want to remind you they are wanted as of today's taping date, which is September 11th, 2024. And first up is a new face to the show. Walton County deputies are looking for 52-year-old Robert Michael McDonald for multiple felony burglary as well as theft charges.
Paul Austin Griner's next up, and he's wanted for felony sexual assault. He was last known to live on Lambview Drive in Fort Walton Beach.
Another new one being sought by Walton County deputies is 41-year-old Larry Keith Carter. He's being sought for felony violation of probation, last known to live on 4 Mile Road in Freeport.
Take a look at 47-year-old Renee Lopez. Lopez is wanted for sexual battery on a victim under the age of 12, as well as lewd and lascivious molestation.
Got another one with the same charges, sexual battery and lewd and lascivious molestation. That's 31-year-old Timothy Tyler Turner, last known to live on Red Barrow Road up in Baker.
And contact Crimestoppers if you have any information on where to find Clint Wayne Covey. Covey's wanted for felony failure to appear on 2 counts of battery on an officer or firefighter.
Deputies are still searching for 36-year-old Ann Margaret Mary Marsh for failure to appear for theft and elderly abuse, last known to live on Madeline's Path in Fort Walton Beach.
And Denise Freight's last known address was in Pensacola. She's 61 years old. She's wanted for felony VOP for DUI, fleeing and eluding law enforcement, and possession of controlled substances.
Next up is 59-year-old Lincoln Anthony Ricketts. He's wanted for felony failure to appear for driving while license suspended or revoked with prior convictions, resisting arrest without violence, and giving false information to law enforcement officers.
And here's another felony failure to appear. This time it's Alonzo Borum. He's 36 and he's wanted for felony FTA for fleeing and eluding law enforcement, resisting arrest without violence, possession of controlled substance, and possession of narcotics equipment. He was last known to live on Shrewsbury Road in Mary Esther.
And next up, this is a guy we've been looking for, and he's been featured, I believe, on a couple of Cold Pursuit as well. So 22-year-old John William Galveo Saab. He's wanted for first-degree premeditated murder in the shooting death of a 48-year-old Fort Walton Beach man back on March 17th, 2021 in Capri Commons Mobile Home Park. He had an address on Patio Road in Fort Walton Beach prior to the murder, but of course left the area shortly afterwards, and investigators have been unable to locate him.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he may have left the country, but they're not giving up trying to find him.
Yep.
Next up is Ricky Jerome Sutton. He's 45 years old, and he's wanted for felony VOP for aggravated battery on a pregnant victim and harassing a witness.
And Walton deputies are looking for 56-year-old David Allen Simmons for felony violation of probation, last known to live on State Highway 83 in Defuniak Springs.
This is Oswaldo Avalos Camacho, wanted for felony failure to appear for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, last known to live on Williams Court in Fort Walton Beach.
39-year-old Keon Kenneth Cooper, who was last known to live on Dunwoody Place in Fort Walton Beach. He's wanted for felony fleeing with disregard of safety to persons or property.
And unfortunately, we don't have a photo for you of Calvin Rawls Salmon, but he's 79-year-old white male, and he's wanted for felony sexual assault. His last known address was on Northwest Memorial Parkway in Fort Walton Beach.
We do have a photo for 37-year-old Casey Scott Dishman. He's wanted for felony failure to appear for resisting arrest without violence, possession of a controlled substance with intent to sell, as well as other narcotic charges.
And this is Richard Kelly Harrison. Harrison's wanted for felony fraud, last known to live in Milton.
71-year-old Donald Joe Mitchell is wanted for DUI and driving while license suspended or revoked, last known to live over in Navarre.
And Tad Bowers has been on our list for a while. He's 53 years old, that is, and he's wanted for VOP on an original charge of child neglect.
And last on our first list is 44-year-old Jermaine Allen Hawkins, and he's wanted for felony fraud.
So that wraps up that first list. So moving on, Sheriff Aiden recently invited pastors from Okaloosa County to meetings that outlined accomplishments at the OCSO, and also he welcomed new head chaplain and law enforcement veteran Tim Sheldon.
Yep, and meantime, outgoing head chaplain Larry Carter, an Air Force veteran and Mary Esther City Councilman, is retiring August 23rd as one of the agency's most beloved members of all time.
I wanted to accomplish a couple things. One, I want to introduce you to our new chaplain. I will do that here just momentarily because he will be taking the lead of several chaplains that we have. The other thing I want to do is kind of highlight the things that we talk about, and then I want to open it to anybody that has any questions.
What we've heard statistically is this, is that in a 25-year career as a law enforcement officer professional, in 25 years, an average law enforcement officer will have between 750 and 800 critical life events. They're going to see something that they can't unsee, and they're going to hear something that they can't unhear. In 25 years, 750 critical life events. An average person, a citizen, average person, might experience 2 to 3 in their lifetime. And so, hence the chaplaincy. So I've been a law enforcement officer, sworn now, as of April of this past year, for 36 years. And when I started in law enforcement in '88, we didn't have chaplaincy. We didn't have chaplains. We didn't have mental health professionals. And so guys, I want to tell you about, I've been a pastor for 18 years. I've been a police officer for 36 years. And chaplaincy is in the middle of those two things. And I want to tell you guys, it's absolutely a ministry of passion and a ministry of presence. And so that's a little bit about the chaplaincy. I'll be taking the lead role, but I want to introduce to you Chaplain Larry Carter. He's been actually driving this ship now for almost 20 years. He actually retires on the 23rd of this month. I'm not going to be able to fill his shoes. I might get a couple treads maybe I can put on the bottom. I'm not really sure yet. But I want to introduce Larry Carter to you.
I have mixed emotions about doing this because this will probably be my last official act here at the Sheriff's Office. I spent my adult life wearing that uniform, sir, one like it. 30 years saying yes, sir, and bearing honor for our country. I started my Air Force career at Tyndall Air Force Base in 1972. Introduced into the world of chaplaincy because I found if I went to chapel, I didn't have to do details. So, that was probably one of the best decisions in basic training I ever did. And to that, the chapel has always been a part of my heart. I serve at the pleasure of the senior chaplain at Eglin Air Force Base, Chaplain Aguilar. I have an opportunity to serve. I've only had really 2 jobs in my adult life. I spent 30 years in the Air Force and now 20 years here. So that kind of sums up my life. I wouldn't know how to fill out a job application. But in context, I have a wife of 51 years of marriage. I have a son who also is a deputy here at the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office. I have a daughter that's 48. She doesn't want me to say that too loud, but I found out if you focus on the person and remind them that they are significant, you will transcend culture, language, and all kinds of things. I tried my best, and one of my great teachers is Tim, is try to have a way to add value to the individuals in front of me. I was given a platform to serve, to be there on some people's darkest and cold day. And what do you do when you do those days? You just listen. You just listen. You just listen to their stories. Don't judge, don't criticize, you just stand there and listen to their stories because at that moment they're looking for a place to rest. And to cross the blue line, for those men and women to trust us, to do no harm, our greatest challenge to our chaplain, I learned, was just to listen. You don't have to say anything, and I was given that privilege for 20 years.
And this agency simply cannot say enough good things, the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, that is. And I think pretty much everyone that knows him can't say enough good things about Chaplain Larry Carter.
Simply amazing.
Yep, he is. Now, coming back to our fugitives list, we've got Carol Hardy up first, but no photo available. She's 65 years old, and she's wanted for felony exploitation of an elderly person. Last known address was on Wilson Street in Crestview.
New addition this month is Casey Lynn Spires. She's 27. Walton County deputies are searching for her for felony violation of probation. She was last known to live on Hemp Hill Road in Defuniak Springs.
And this is Clenny Terrell Davis, 60 years old, wanted for felony VOP for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and a charge of grand theft.
And contact Crimestoppers if you know where 41-year-old Zachary Lee Dalton is. He's wanted for arson.
And this is Christian Devontae Nix. He's wanted for felony FTA for fleeing and eluding law enforcement, operating a vehicle without a license, and destroying evidence. Last known address, 4th Avenue in Shalimar.
Bobby Lee Duvall, who's wanted for felony battery, last known to live on Whisper Lane in Crestview.
Adrian Lara is next up, wanted by the Walton County Sheriff's Office for felony violation of probation. Last known address was on Orange Avenue in Defuniak Springs.
Back to Okaloosa County, they're searching for 41-year-old David Michael Williams for felony violation of probation for multiple counts of grand theft, theft from the elderly, and fraud, last known to live on John Sims Parkway in Niceville.
And contact us if you have anything on the whereabouts of Jonathan Christian Wolf. We don't have a photo available, but Wolf is a 51-year-old white male who's wanted for felony fleeing and eluding.
30-year-old Brennan Shane Dickinson was last known to live on Harmony Lane in Crestview. He's wanted for felony possession of a weapon or ammo by a convicted felon, burglary, larceny, as well as violation of probation.
53-year-old Angela Dawn Tripp is wanted for failure to appear for exploitation of an elderly person, last known to live on Crown Creek Circle in Crestview.
33-year-old Amber Rochelle Hawkins is wanted for felony violation of probation for burglary, trafficking in stolen property, and possession of a controlled substance.
And law enforcement's also looking for Dara Suzanne Giancola. She's wanted for felony failure to appear, for leaving the scene of an accident, DUI with injury or property damage, bribery of, or that should be of, a public official, and resisting arrest without violence.
Next up is 27-year-old Janaya Thompson, wanted for felony failure to appear for attempting to flee, elude law enforcement, and operating a motor vehicle without a valid license, last known to live on Atoka Trail in Crestview.
And the Walton County Sheriff's Office is trying to track down Jeffrey Blake Shaw for felony violation of probation.
Next up is 25-year-old Leka Marique. I have no idea if I said that right. Troutman. We don't have a photo, but 25-year-old black female wanted by the Crestview Police Department for felony aggravated battery, last known to live on Bel Air Drive in Crestview.
And trying to also locate Stephen Richard Arp, who's wanted for felony failure to appear for use of a computer to solicit a child, as well as use of a two-way communication device to facilitate a felony.
Another one we don't have a photo of, but he's 39-year-old Jerome Daniel Mason. He's wanted for felony fraud and exploitation of the elderly.
Scott Daniel Sconyards is next on the list. He's wanted for VOP, for DUI, and fleeing and eluding. Last known address was in Destin.
And here's 32-year-old Anthony Michael Frodely, wanted for violation of probation for grand theft, trafficking in stolen property, and providing false information to a pawnbroker. Last known to live in Fort Walton Beach.
Walter Elliott's last known address was Wyndham Avenue in Fort Walton Beach, and Elliott's wanted for felony violation of probation for grand theft of a motor vehicle.
Deputies are still looking for 58-year-old Todd Wilson Inman for felony violation of probation for driving while license suspended or revoked, passing or forged note, possession of a controlled substance, providing false information to a pawnbroker, and grand theft. Quite a few listed there.
Yeah, and next up, no photo available, but another sexual assault one. Brandon Dalton West, who's 33 years old, is wanted for sexual assault. So contact Emerald Coast Crimestoppers if you've got any information on where he can be located.
And last on this list is 55-year-old Donald Lee Chapman. He's wanted for felony violation of probation for leaving the scene of an accident, attempting to flee law enforcement, driving while license suspended or revoked, and resisting an officer, last known to live on Evergreen Drive in Mariester.
And we're going to talk a little bit about a pretty cool partnership that was formed. It was members of the Florida Department of Health in Okaloosa County and Okaloosa County Health Improvement Partnership, also known as OCHIP. They joined forces recently with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office to hand out Your Life Was Saved Narcan kits to Destin boat captains.
That's right, and the move comes following the recent overdose of a charter boat passenger offshore. The kits are generally provided by EMS after they administer a reversal drug and are also given out by our post-overdose support teams.
So we're giving out and partnered with the health department today to hand out Narcan kits and go bags to our boat captains for them to put out with their medical bags on their boats. So in the event that they have an overdose out on the waterway, they'll be able to provide that emergency assistance to whoever that might be on that vessel. We actually had an overdose of somebody that came off of a boat right after 4th of July weekend. It was actually when they came back and hit land, but that kind of started the idea of, oh goodness, what would happen if somebody OD'd and they were out on the waterway. And so, you know, we want all of our citizens, our visitors to be safe. And so the best way we can do that is through community education, providing that Narcan for these boat captains to have on their vessels.
Okay, this Narcan is provided through a grant and it is completely free. So anyone 18 or older can go to the health department offices in Fort Walton Beach or in Crestview, and you can get up to 3 boxes at a time. So that's a pretty good deal to save lives. Next up, we're going back to our list of fugitives, and at the top of this list we have Tyrone Frost. He's 48 years old and he is wanted for felony violation of probation for burglary. He was last known to live on Nellie Drive in Santa Rosa Beach.
30-year-old Maik Jamal Boyd, who's wanted for felony VOP for grand theft and dealing in stolen property. He's also wanted for non-payment of child support, last known to live on Long Drive in Crestview.
And this is Alyssa Hibbert. She's been on the list for a while. She's wanted for VOP for child neglect and possession of cocaine, last known to live in Pensacola.
One of our older fugitives is 81-year-old J. William Shutter, and he's wanted for felony child neglect.
Take a look at Jose Alberto Hernandez Cruz. He's wanted for failure to appear for DUI and 2 counts of child neglect. Last known address was in Destin on Airport Road.
Here's 48-year-old Cameron Emmanuel Sanders, who's wanted for felony fleeing and eluding law enforcement, driving while license suspended or revoked, and resisting arrest.
And this might be a new name to our list. John Darwin Gesford, 50 years old, wanted for felony violation of probation for possession of a controlled substance and possession of drug paraphernalia.
But 29-year-old Cheyenne Lee Gentry, she's been on the show for a while. She's wanted for violation of probation for possession of methamphetamine, last known to live on Oak Terrace Drive up in Crestview.
Also trying to find James Clinton Brinkley Jr. He's 65 years old and he's wanted for violation of probation on a battery charge. His last known address was also in Pensacola.
And here's another new one. That's 54-year-old Gabrielle Wade Manley, wanted for felony violation of probation for use of a two-way communication device to facilitate a felony, as well as possession of a controlled substance with intent to sell.
So we've got a big, kind of a first time event coming up in early November up in the north end of the county, and it's going to be a little bit different from some of the things that have taken place before, so we wanted to give you some advance notice about it.
Hello, I'm Community Resource Deputy Fordham with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office. On Saturday, November the 2nd, from 11 to 3, we'll be having our first annual Community Farm and Military Appreciation Day. This future annual event will be held at the Barnhill Arena at the Baker Area Recreation Association, located at 5503 Highway 4 in Baker. There will be tractor companies from all over Okaloosa County bringing tractors for display from antique to modern day. There will be face painting and a petting zoo for the young and young at heart. Musical performances by the Crestview Community Orchestra, as well as horseback rides from the Okaloosa County Mounted Posse. Community agencies from the county, state, and federal will be in attendance, to include the Eglin Air Force Base K-9 units and the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office K-9 units. The 6th Ranger Battalion at Camp Rudder will bring their reptile display, and there will also be displays from the 7th Special Forces Group. Come enjoy this 4-hour event between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Saturday, November the 2nd at the Barnhill Arena in Baker. If you're interested in being a vendor, please contact me, 850-830-9158. Thank you.
And what a huge thanks to North End Community Resource Deputy Christopher Fordham, who has really been doing a fantastic job of planning this event, getting everything in order. Now, Emerald Coast Crimestoppers will also be there. We're going to have a booth there that day as well, but he has done a fantastic job getting this together. And a big thanks to the Good Country WAAZ, WJSB, and Crestview for putting together this spot for their listeners and allowing us to share to help spread the word.
All right, hope to see you in early November. That's November 2nd. And that's going to do it for this edition of Okaloosa Eye on Crime. We want to thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.